Hello and welcome to the latest edition of 24 Lies Per Second, featuring possibly our most eclectic lineup of films yet, including a singing Tom Cruise, a vampire-killing president, an unusual rom-com, and much, much more. My name's Russ Kellaway, and yes, we've made it to double figures. This is episode 10, The Return of the Lucas. My executive producers this week are Winter Tyson.
Hello.
And Claire Mockett.
Hello.
And apart from all the cinema releases, we'll also be taking a look at Roman Polanski's theatre adaptation Carnage and the Denzel Washington Ryan Reynolds two-hander that is Safe House. But before all that, George Lucas returns, though only as an executive producer, in his passion project, Red Tails.
We're given hand-me-down planes.
Feel like I'm flying my grandfather's Buick.
We've done every dirty job you've handed us.
You have not assigned us a single forward mission.
Train, 11 o'clock.
It's military.
Let's give those newspapers something to write about.
Gotcha!
Doesn't change what I think of you and your boys.
We don't care.
We count our victories by the husbands we return to their wives, by the fathers we get back to their children. To the last minute, to the last man, we fight.
Yes, sir.
Junior, get out of the plane!
How do you like that, Mr. Hitler?
Everything's a challenge.
Through adversity!
To the stars! From the last plane, to the last bullet, to the last minute, to the last man, we fight!
We fight!
We fight!
We fight!
We fight!
We fight!
So, after over 20 years in development, George Lucas's project about the Tuskegee Airmen's fight against racism during World War II finally makes it to our screen. But Claire, was it worth the wait?
No. Basically, it was like an honour film saying to people, this is the situation that was in the end of World War II or forever about racism. And to me, this film was such a template. You could literally have put anybody in this film. For example, during the Second World War, we also had female pilots called the Wasps. This film could have easily been about them. Yep. Just take out the racism and put in feminism. There were obviously good points about the film, but to me, I thought it was dated. I thought it didn't give the respect these people actually deserved, and I would have liked to seen a proper tribute, to be honest.
Oh, I totally agree. I thought it was awful from the opening 10 minutes. You know, you watch the first, there's an opening kind of, dogfight in the air, and you've got the worst script ever. I think someone actually says something like, "How do you like that, Mr. Hitler?" And then there's a kind of, there's a Nazi that looks like he's straight out of hell. He's like the most chiseled, horrible man ever. The score seems like it's from the 80s, but not in a good way. It's kind of ham-fisted and just like tear-jerking you one way and then trying to do the other thing the other way. And even the credits looked rubbish.
Oh, but it wasn't just me. I thought, actually, are these the real credits? Or
it looked like I'd done them in Photoshop.
Yeah, it looked, but from the first edition of Photoshop.
It was really terrible. I mean, one of my worst things about it was that it was just one barnstorming speech after the other. Yeah. I think in the opening 30 minutes we had kind of both Cuba Gooding Jr. and Terrence Howard chewing the scenery like there's no tomorrow and telling
and a pipe.
us... Oh, it was with a pipe.
It was ridiculous.
And so, and it was like, when we were fighting, there was war music. When we were in Italy, there was stereotypical Italian music. And it was just, there was nothing original about it. And like you said, Claire, it didn't, to trying to tell the story that it was telling, it didn't engage with any kind of debate about racism. It just showed what was there and what was happening. And that was really it. I mean, Winter, did you love it or not really?
The problem is it was just quite boring.
Yeah.
And for the story that they were telling of this kind of first lot of black fighter pilots, people who had to, essentially fight to even get decent planes to fly in to prove themselves and so on and so forth. Oh, just boring. I think the problem is it's got this really sort of 1950s kind of view of what racism is. This idea that if you're a racist and, someone turns up and confounds your expectations, i.e. is brave and presumably, and I'm saying this because of the cliches in the script, and presumably eating a watermelon, or do you know what I mean? This really basic idea of, here's how we get past racism. Like, if they do something good, then you'll love them. When it's not, because racism is something that happens in spite of whatever people do. Do you know what I mean? The guys there are stories from the Second World War. I'm reading a really good book at the moment. Maybe this has spoiled it a bit, called The Good War. And it's got these stories of kind of black and Asian soldiers who did essentially the same things that their colleagues did, and went through the same sort of terrible, terrible stories. But when they got back to base, they were still expected to serve on the other guys. They were still expected to clean the latrines out. They were the ones not being paid as much, and so on and so forth. And it's just this really simple idea that, well, heck, you know, if someone proves themselves, and we were talking about this before. There's this scene they go to this bar, and of course, the first time they go, they're not allowed in the bar, and then the second time they go, they've proven themselves, so they are allowed in the bar. I mean, why you'd even want to go back in the bar is something they don't even sort of talk about. But a character leans in and goes, "Why? I hear you blokes don't like to be called coloureds," and you kind of think, well, what is this racism for children from some future where racism doesn't exist and they have to be sort of, they've got this weird dot to dot kind of story going on. And you know, the other thing, it just like you guys have said, it just looks terrible. It sounds terrible. They've got, like I say, it's sort of a project that Lucas kind of probably thinks, I should do this because it's really good, but he doesn't actually advance any ideas. He doesn't have anything to say about the racism is the problem, I think.
Well, I imagine that he was going for, like, you know, in the same thing he did with Indiana Jones. He was going for this kind of, you know, boys' own adventure serial type film.
Yeah.
But it's just.
But it's not even exciting.
No,
is it?
it's just it's no good. It just doesn't even work. It's like he tried to make the most inspiring movie ever made and just came up with cliche after cliche.
It's got the guy who falls in love, and as soon as he sort of starts proposing to someone, you go, "Oh, unlucky, mate."
See you later. It's full of those tropes. And they for some reason they put the singer Neo in there, who's got the worst. I don't even know where he was from.
Alabama accent.
That
was supposed to be an Alabama.
It sounded like he had a plum in his mouth.
I think
for the entire film.
it was. I mean, just going back to the love story, I just thought there's absolutely no point to the story whatsoever. No. It was just sandwiched in, just for some relief away from the planes to try and get women to go and see it as well, or the other people. I just didn't understand the context of the love story. And you look at films, was it Letters from
Juliet?
Yeah, when Clint Eastwood, and you know,
oh no, not that one, not Letters from Juliet. Then
Iwo Jima.
Yeah,
that's
sorry, Letters from Juliet. It's a rom-com. We're not talking about that. I'll say again, Letters from Iwo Jima.
That's the one. It's like films like that actually have some context to it. Whereas this kind of film, it was like war in Disney ideas, and it was just Mickey Mousing it, and I just thought it was pretty much disrespecting what people actually went through, because it just didn't tell the story that I would expect to go and see. I
think this film is basically an example of what happens when the creator of Star Wars tries to make a serious movie. I think that's, you know, because it's got the same kind of themes of, you know, good and bad and love and hate, and those really simple themes which run through Star Wars and work fine in that kind of scenario. But in a real world environment, when you're talking about actual history, like you said, Claire, it just comes across as a bit disrespectful, and just, you know, I don't think you've garnered, especially since there's been an HBO film about these guys in the past, which is great. Lawrence Fishburne, Cuba Gooding Jr., ironically. But, you know, that's really good. And so I'm not quite sure why he bothered when you could have just watched that again. Okay, our first of two stage-to-screen adaptations this week is the 80s love-in, Rock of Ages. So this film was in danger of simply being called that one where Maverick sings. But Winter, did it have you tapping your feet?
No, it didn't. Although it did right at the start, because the very start of the film is screen's black. You hear Tom Cruise say, "Here's a song you might know," and he starts singing Paradise City. And the problem is, throughout the rest of the song, and you know, maybe my own musical preferences here, but there is not a song as well put together as Paradise City in the whole of the rest of the film. And you kind of get this glimpse of like these two different sides of what rock used to be. You get this kind of, I mean, Guns N' Roses, yeah, you know, you look back and it's all they're just as ridiculous as the next people, but there was a certain grunginess to Guns N' Roses. There was a certain sort of rawness to the songs that perhaps I'm suggesting Whitesnake and Journey did not possess. But I mean, I thought this film was pretty much a dud, and the problems all kind of revolve around this Stacey Jack's character. It's played by Tom Cruise. I mean, firstly, the film buys into this stupid notion that it's fine to be as dreadful as you like if you're creative. And I that's always really annoyed me. And in the film, it's played out, oh, it's the evil manager's fault. It's the business side of things. When, you know, in real life, some of these guys are complete douches. But it's not a problem. It's not really an issue. Just don't pretend they're not. If you're lying on a bed with 10 drugged up women lying over you, you know, you've made your choices there. It's not your evil manager and so on. And I mean, there's loads of really good films like I can't think of the name of it. Keira Knightley film about Dylan Thomas came out a couple of years ago with Cillian Murphy and Sienna Miller in it. And that film shows Dylan Thomas as a complete arsehole, but it shows you what Dylan Thomas was like, and it's brilliant. And there's no reason to pretend these sort of people are anything else. And secondly, Tom Cruise is really badly miscast in this film. I can't get over just how unconvincing he is in it. I mean, this Stacey Jacks, he's supposed to be some kind of legendary rocker, and I mean he's sort of one of the main characters. But I don't know if it was my own expectations that he would turn up as sort of like a mythic figure when the character just doesn't. But Cruise is terrible. You needed someone with some kind of presence here. I may get shouted down for this, but McConaughey could have done it. Do you know what I mean? He's got a screen presence that Tom Cruise just, you know, and no matter how many like milk crates you stand on, you're not going to get that screen presence. Tom Cruise is the wrong shape. He's the wrong look. I mean, he looks like Alice Cooper in this film because he's not a young guy anymore, Tom Cruise, but he just does not convince as this rock guy, and he doesn't have the physicality for it. He doesn't really have the voice for it, and he just looks a bit crazy, and not in a he's gone off the rails, he's a crazy rocker kind of way. He looks like crazy. He looks a little bit odd, you know. But I mean, there's a load of things wrong with it. I mean, it's rubbish. The whole thing's rubbish. It's really, there's a real nasty streak of hypocrisy through it. It's really misogynist in many ways, but it's just dead music. The music isn't exciting. It doesn't make you want to enjoy music. It doesn't make you want to sing. I didn't find it made you want to get involved with music in the way films about music should make you say, you know what, I wish I was in a band. I wish I was a musician. I wish I had that skill, which, I mean, I don't. And, you know, films about music, to me, you should go, wow, I wish I could do that. I wish I could dance. I wish I could sing, blah, blah, blah. But this film, you just thought, you know what, sod the love, yeah. If this kind of weird, dead Glee version of rock. But, you know what, she's from a small town,
she is.
Come to a big city, and he says, I've written a song for you.
Yep.
What song do you think he's gonna sing?
The one that he wrote, the Journey one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he comes out with. I mean, if you're gonna do a rock musical about rock music, get someone like Jim Steinman, who wrote sort of the Bat Out of Hell stuff. He did the soundtrack to Streets of Fire. Get him to write the friggin' music, because it will be big and ridiculous, but in a really huge way. There's no big music in this film. I was just sat there thinking, I don't understand what this is I'm being shown here.
It's interesting that you talking about the music and such for you, because I am quite a fan of that kind of music. And it's funny, not in a I go out and buy it and listen to it all the time. Just in the fact that when it's on, I like it. You know, it's not.
No, yeah,
on my
definitely,
ear and
definitely.
But I think but one of the things is funny is that you talk about. I think a lot of the flaws of the film that you're talking about are because of that music. You talk about misogynist. You talk about that. I think that comes from the music. The music of that era of those guys singing it. Whitesnake. Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me. They're misogynistic songs. They're about the sexualization of women and so on and things like that. Which is it's another point. I knew you'd hate this movie, and so when I went to see it, I thought, right, I'm just going to try and go in with a bit of a open mind and kind of see where it goes. Because I'm not averse to the occasional musical, and kind of.
Neither I love it, and I wanted it to be good.
Yeah,
I really want. Every time I go and see a film, no matter how dreadful it sounds, I think, you know what, Tom Cruise playing a rocker, that could work. I can see that working, but it just doesn't.
See, I think it's funny. Everything you say about him, I think is right. I think he was miscast. I think he was odd. He was very weird. But I kind of found myself looking at him going, oh, okay, yeah, that's weird. But I'm going to watch. I enjoyed it because it was weird. That's not necessarily a good thing. I'm not saying he did a good performance in it. I thought his singing was way above par of what I thought it was going to be. I didn't have a clue. He's got a voice. He can sing a note, and that's whether it's auto-tuned or not. I don't really know. It didn't sound it to me, but he can sing. So that was quite. I enjoyed that aspect of it. I think. I'm surprised that you say you're a fan of the music, because I would have thought. I mean, I suppose the problem is, like you say, it's that Gleeification of the music. It's the fact that none of these songs that we're listening to are from start to finish. They're often mashed up into 2-song versions of one song. So, and I agree in that annoyed me, because you're just about getting into a song and then someone else cuts in with something else, and you might only ever hear one verse and a chorus as opposed to the whole thing. So, and I think. My major problem with the film was that it was too long. It's a good 2 hours, and it should have been 90 minutes at the most. I think it should have been a lot snappier and just kind of condensed that stuff down. I don't know. I think mainly one of the reasons I'm slightly trying to stick up for it is because it's in no way the worst film I've seen this week, and it's got a hell of a lot of flack. Not. And I think we're going to talk about Safe House later on, and and in a lot of reviews, Safe House is pulling 3 stars out, and I don't know where that's pulling it from, because Safe House to me is a much worse film than Rock of Ages, because it thinks it's great. Safe House thinks it's a really clever thriller, and it's got Denzel Washington who turns up and does what he wants as he normally does, and it's just really boring. At least Rock of Ages was mentally nuts, and I sat there and went, well, this is crazy. And I'm not saying it was the best film of the year, it's not even the best film of the week, but I think it's taken a lot of flack when in an age where something like Glee exists, this is just a logical extension of that, where someone's looked at it and gone, right, kids actually quite like it when music's sung in slightly different ways by good-looking people. And that's all this is, really. Next up is the film that gets the most laughs when its title is revealed at the end of the trailer. That's right, it's Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. Adapted from one of Seth Grahame-Smith's historical mashup novels, this has been brought to us by the team of Timur Bekmambetov and Tim Burton. And to be honest, I'm not really sure whether that's a good thing or not. Claire, did it work for you?
Strangely, it kind of did. And I think it's because of, with films, obviously, how you feel on the day, what kind of mood you are, what mood you're in, what's happened during the day. You go and see a film and you kind of take all that with you to then go and sit down and watch a film. And because I had a hard week, I actually really enjoyed the humour in it. I was probably one of the only people laughing, but I didn't care. I just wanted to laugh, and it was enjoyable as long as you don't expect anything. I think there was a couple of issues in there that were quite serious. Obviously, going back to racism and slavery. I don't know how to really talk about that in this film, because I think it's good to know, if you know your history, you can understand what Abraham Lincoln did to help people. But then also throw in a load of vampires and Gettysburg, and you've got a whole mishmash of things, and throw in some CGI, and then you kind of got a comic novel on screen, a graphic novel on screen, and I thought, it was okay. It wasn't mind-blowing, it wasn't really horrendous. But I did think that Benjamin Walker, the guy who played Abraham Lincoln, reminded me of Colin Firth, like a young Colin Firth kind of thing.
Do you think, because I was sat there with my brother, and he said, God, he looks like Liam Neeson, and I couldn't get Liam Neeson out of my head.
Yeah, I think it was more to do with how he was, very proper, very kind, and that kind of stereotypical. I just looked at him and thought, you're an English gent kind of thing, and I think it's maybe because just the way that he was on screen and the way he, with his hair and everything, I just thought he just reminded me of Colin Firth, which is a nice thing. I kind of enjoyed his acting. One thing that I want to really quickly talk about is designing vampires. I mean, we've had so many vampire films lately that every single film or every TV show have kind of designed a vampire in a different type of way, and these ones have just reminded me of these like dragonfish, I think, the ones that open their mouths really widely. I thought that was kind of interesting because it reminded me of some films back in the 80s with just random like vampire designs, and with this film I just kind of started to think, oh yeah, this vampire is completely different to the other vampires in that other film. And it's quite what I like about vampire films now is how they design the vampires rather than the stories, because the stories have been told so many times that it kind of, I just looked at the way the film looked and the colours that they used, and Like as I said, the CGI and stuff. It wasn't real life CGI. It was like more graphic novel CGI stuff, which is quite enjoyable. And as someone who is really into design, I kind of liked the way it looked.
I thought it looked fantastic.
Really?
It looks like CGI, but the whole look of the film as a whole, because it's kind of sepia toned, and you get a lot of scenes where it's sort of almost like you're looking through a pinhole camera, so the edges are blurred around like some kind of Instagram thing. And it's I loved it. I thought it was I think it's a really smart film for one, because I love that. I read some of the books I read. I quite like sort of the alternate history type books. And this really, really simply, in a quite a smart way, dovetailed in sort of this secret history of Abraham Lincoln type stuff. What else he did, and sort of like this, and this idea that the underlying thrust of the Civil War was because literally trying to free a people from being cattle. It's very simple, very, you might say, oh, that's, you're going a bit over the top in your metaphors there, but I thought it was
perfectly right for it.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliantly done. To the point where I did wonder how it plays in sort of southern states in America, because the basic premise is the vampires settled in the South.
Okay.
And that's how this whole sort of this whole Civil War starts. But I mean, I thought it was quite a funny film. I would say 100% of the audience laughed most of the way through, but there were me and my brother, and then we were the only two people in there.
That was it.
But we both found it very funny. I mean, we got slightly different sort of tastes film wise, and we both really enjoyed it. Bradley Cooper's in it. Bradley Cooper's brilliant.
Really?
I really like him. He's one of those actors who he's very good even if the films are terrible. So stuff like Tamara Drew, he's still quite good in it playing a rock star. He should have been in Rock of Ages. But he's a good actor. He's a very good actor to have in it. And I mean, there's a bit right at the end where I thought they missed a joke which would have made it kind of a perfect film. Like perfect in the sense that we're doing Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. We've done what the poster says this film will be.
Yeah.
And nice to watch a film that's a 15 and full of blood and people getting shot in the face and people getting hacked and chopped and whatnot. And I just thought the whole film really works, and it works in quite a smart way. I've recently read Kim Newman's Bloody Red Baron, which is vampires First World War. And the battles, when there are sort of battle scenes, it really sort of put me in mind of the excitement of that book as well. So it really works. And I've tried to read, I'll say, one of the guy's books, The Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, and I had to stop because the joke gets old within about 20 or so pages, and you're kind of like, right, this is all. But for a 90-minute kind of a bit kung fu-y vampires biting people's faces and alternate history. Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Well, I just add one more thing in there for what I was saying, that one of the interesting things that I found was that halfway through or near the end of the film, the vampires actually turned around and said, of course we're going to try and take over everything. You would if you were in our position. Of course, we want to take over the land and stuff. And it was, for an instant, you kind of saw like the people who were trying to get out of being the slave. Then you had the white people who were trying to make sure America was okay with the black people, and then you had the vampires saying, but we want to take over everything as well. And it's just this kind of layered what's the word? Dimensions. There's like different dimensions of the film, but you only had it for like five minutes or so, but you could suddenly see the whole context of the story just kind of opening up a little bit more.
And it is one of those films where, like, his master, as it were, because Bradley, what did I say? Bradley Cooper before?
Yeah,
Dominic
Cooper.
Dominic
Cooper. Yeah,
Dominic Cooper. Did I say Bradley Cooper?
Yeah.
Oh, he's terrible. Don't know. Dominic Cooper, the English guy, he's brilliant.
He was great in it.
He kind of says this stuff to him. He'll say, no one's free till we're all free, Abraham. And he'll go, oh, I'll remember that. So sort of, I think every speech Lincoln's given has been sort of combed through for these little kind of soundbite nuggets. And I got to say, I was in the mood for something like a B movie, and it did what great B movies did in that it delivered in the explosions and blood and guts, but underneath it's got quite a dark social comment to it. It's full of stuff that when you kind of think about it later, it doesn't fall apart because the little things they've done in there, it's quite smart. It's a smart film, and I'm glad Tim Burton didn't direct it, which I understand he was originally supposed to and just produced it. I think he's found his calling as a producer. I'm
really pleasantly surprised. Actually, I haven't seen it, but I'm really pleasantly surprised that you both liked it so much, because I just didn't know how to take it. I wasn't sure whether it was just going to be a pile of rubbish, because it did have that. It did have that thing
potential. Where you think, is this the trailer? Is the trailer everything good?
And it looks a bit silly, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And the fact that, like you said, it's got those elements, but it's also got a little bit of kind of deeper undercurrents. I'm gonna have to go and catch it. I'm gonna make some time this week. So
I think it's worth seeing at the cinema, because, like I say, even though it is full on CGI, it looks the whole look of the film is fantastic.
Finally, for cinema releases this week, we have the Judd Apatow-produced 5-Year Engagement starring Jason Segel and Emily Blunt. I think, Winter, you're the only one that managed to catch this, so what did you think?
Okay, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's one of those films, it kind of understands how relationships actually work as opposed to how film relationships work. It's got sort of the required number of laughs and teary moments and etc., etc. It does drag slightly, but all in the right places. It's like when I don't know if you've ever read The Beach, the Alex Garland novel, right in the middle, when you're kind of thinking, I'm going to stop reading this because it's boring, and then something happens that makes you think, oh, I see why it had to be boring. So it sort of drags in quite a clever way when you think about it later. But that adds to what I think is a really satisfying ending, which, if truth be told, and sort of where romantic comedies tend to go, you'd have been satisfied no matter what the ending had have been, because it would have seemed realistic for the characters. Yeah, it's a funny film. It's got those moments where you sit there and go, oh God, I've done that, or it's got very recognisable moments in. But I'd recommend it. I might, to be honest, if you're going to go and see something at the cinema, go and see Abe Lincoln and get this on. Get this when it comes to DVD, because I don't think it'll suffer too much, because it's not a cinematic thing. But yeah, good film. Enjoyed it.
Still showing at the Mallard are Prometheus, Men in Black 3 and Snow White and the Huntsman, and check out our last podcast, episode 9, on YouTube for reviews of those. And now moving on to DVD releases, we start with Roman Polanski's Carnage.
Following a verbal dispute in Brooklyn Bridge Park, Zachary Cowan, armed with a stick, struck our son, Ethan Longstreet, in the face.
Armed?
You don't like armed? Michael, what can we say? Carrying, carrying a stick, all right?
Carrying, yeah.
Carrying a stick.
If Ethan had broken 2 of Zachary's teeth, I'm thinking Alan and I might have had more of a knee-jerk reaction. I'm not sure we would see the big picture.
Sure you would. She's not telling you the real secret.
Let him taste it.
Very good. Excuse me.
Yeah? Undesirable side effects. Basically, you look like you're drunk.
Do you know what they were arguing about?
Ethan wouldn't let Zachary be a part of his gang.
Did you know that Ethan had a gang?
No, but I'm thrilled to hear it.
Yeah.
Your son is a maniac.
Zachary is not a maniac.
Yes, he is.
Alan, why are you saying that?
He's a maniac. Look, can you hear me now?
You better watch it.
And they're both horrible.
What the hell are we doing here?
I hope you're kidding.
You think my son is a snitch?
I don't think anything.
Well, if you don't think anything, don't say anything.
I'm sick to death of it. We were nice to you. We bought tulips. My wife dressed me up as a liberal.
Yeah. Nancy, what are you?
There.
Huh? Oh my God.
Way to go! You killed that hamster.
What you did to that hamster was wrong. You can't deny.
You're blowing this all out of proportion!
I don't get drunk.
I feel like I'm gonna vomit again.
Huge turnoff.
Get a couple of drinks in her and bam!
Why are we still in this house?
Carnage is adapted from a French play titled The God of Carnage and features 2 married couples who meet up to discuss the fact that one of their sons has hit and injured the others with a stick. I'm going to hold my hand up and say that I really enjoyed this film, but Claire, how about you?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It reminds me of my theatre studies days at college, just looking at how like the objectives and sub-objectives of action and stuff. It because it was shot in real time and in a single location, you literally followed every single thing that they did, which was really interesting to see a play being translated to be a film. Whether or not it needs to be seen in the cinema is quite an interesting question, but it kind of led me to start thinking, what's the difference between a play and a film, and how do you do some things on theatre and some things in film. But anyway, just looking at the story of it itself, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the way that the characters revealed themselves gradually. They had a front at the beginning, and as you do when you meet anyone new, you kind of put your best layer on, and then slowly that layer will peel back, and with alcohol or whichever device you want to use, you can actually see the true objective of somebody. There was good use of props in this as well. There wasn't too many, like in films you sometimes get distracted by the action, but it was almost like a Brechtian thing where everything was stripped down, so everyone had their own little device in there.
Yeah.
So like you had I think whose character was it, Michael's John C. Reilly, he had the alcohol, and he was very fixed to the alcohol that came out later. Alan Cohen, who was Christopher Waltz, is that his name? He had his phone. Kate Winslet kind of had the vomit scene, which was quite
good prop,
which was brilliant. And then Jodie Foster had her books, and it just, you can see the attachments that people have to their little gadgets and things that help them through life, and then when those are stripped away from them, you can actually see the truth underneath the currents that people have and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I really liked it. I agree. It was nice to see a film where the characters changed. You look at something like Rock of Ages, where no one changed; they were stock characters.
Yeah.
They basically did the same thing for 2 hours. Whereas this film, everyone kind of has a journey to go on, and they all did, and no one was really left behind. I thought they were all very equal footing, and maybe that's a theatrical kind of thing, which is coming. It's obviously a four-hander with 4 good quality actors in it. I thought, you at some point you kind of found yourself liking or agreeing with them at some point throughout the film. It wasn't just like you're always wrong and oh god, she's really annoying, which I kind of liked. I thought it was, in terms of Polanski, I thought it was really intelligently shot, because the problem often with theatre to film adaptations is they can just be really boring and really stagey, and obviously this benefits from the fact that it's so slimmed down and it's only 4 people. But I thought it was framed in a very interesting way, and it kind of kept moving around, and it wasn't as naturalistic as it could have been. I think that kind of helped it kind of move along. It surprised me, with the throwing up, and John C. Reilly goes from being, he said my wife dressed me up as a liberal, and he ends up sat on the sofa with a whiskey and a cigar, revealing himself to be a hamster murderer, which is kind of completely off the wall and great. And I thoroughly enjoyed it, and perfect time, 80 minutes, short but didn't outstay its welcome either. And then it had those lovely bookends with the kids at the start and the beginning, which I thought was a quite nice way of kind of tying it up, because you're very much left up in the air with the adults doing their thing, and then it kind of just showed you what was really going on in the background.
I hated it. I thought it was. You know what? I was watching it thinking the only now. This is going to sound terrible now. Now that you two have really loved it, I thought the only people who could possibly like this are the characters that are in it. It was just a film that really, really annoyed me. No one, I've met people because of where I work and so on. I meet people who have similar ways of looking at the world and have very this kind of weird sort of everything has to be analysed, everything has to be processed through, and all this kind of stuff. And these characters just did not strike me as real in any sense. I know that may not have been the point, which is fine, but even if that wasn't the point, they didn't strike me as interesting. I mean, the most interesting character, I think, was probably Christoph Waltz's character, namely because he was stood at the side essentially saying, "You what?" a lot of the time, essentially saying, "Oh, come on, let's not get carried away with this." And I just felt the whole film was, I just couldn't really get a handle on why I'm supposed to care about any of these people, why I'm supposed to care about the problems with their kids, which essentially amount to, they'll sort it out. You know?
I don't think you are supposed to care about them.
No,
I just think you're supposed to enjoy watching them not solve their problem, as it were. You're almost supposed to be laughing at them. It's quite a mean film in that way.
But as sort of a critique of those type of, I suppose, what we call sort of Western liberal values, this kind of self-analytical kind of mindset these most of the characters seem to be in anyway. You kind of thought, well, why? Not only do I not care, but I can't imagine how this sort of relates to anything. This doesn't really say much about our society. It says something about kind of the more noodling, self-obsessed parts of our society. But even to sort of laugh at it, if the point of the film is to sort of scorn and criticise these characters, I think the film was too self-satisfied with itself to really do that. It was really kind of saying, "Oh, look at these characters. Oh, aren't I such a clever film for doing this?" And you're like, no, you're the characters. This is the type of film I think these characters would enjoy. Do you know what I mean? I think there was just a real level of disinterest. And when you say about sort of the bookend scenes, the last scene made me go, exactly. That's all.
It's almost as if like the whole film led to that bit, saying, well, you knew that the kids were going to sort it out themselves.
But I like being wound up by sort of, engineered liberal guilt, because I really like Michael Haneke's films, and that's all they are. All they are is this kind of Western liberal guilt sort of machine. I like all that. And, looking at the characters, I probably subscribe to many of the views that these characters hold about certain subjects, to a point where I can annoy myself, and I sometimes think, get a grip, stop being so precious about stuff, and are you finding offence where there's no offence? Are you're overlooking at this? But geez, I don't know. Maybe they just reminded me of me, and I just thought, I don't want anything to do with these douches. But I thought the film was too smug in itself to really critique the characters that were within it, if that was the point of the film. And you know what, 75 minutes, oh my word, it felt like 2 hours. And I know it's going to come off as, I know this is a week where I really enjoyed the Abe Lincoln vampire movie, but not the analytical kind of chatty serious film for adults. But I thought, you know what, if this is what Polanski's doing now, if this is what he's up to, mate, just I retire, or come over to America and just
You can't do that.
No, just come to America and sort of do something
go
else. Yeah, you might as well.
He's actually in the film as well. He's the neighbour who opens the door to peek through to see what's happening in the corridor.
Totally missed that.
In the hallway, it's just a space just appears.
You're a genius.
And you think, who is that, and why are they in it? And you kind of think, oh, it's Polanski just staring at the stuff like we are. And it is, I do understand how you feel about it, because there's some part of me that actually looks and think, this is pretentious.
Oh, and I like my pretentious cinema. I really enjoy my pretentious cinema.
I do understand that it is pretentious, but it isn't quite there with where it wanted to go. But at the same time, I did enjoy it, because I think it reminded me of other things and other stuff I've studied in the past.
Right. Okay.
So if I'd just seen this film on its own and I hadn't done anything before to do with theatre or anything, I think I would have been completely bored and just thought, I don't really get it. But because it reminds me of a very Brechtian, one character, one prop, kind of interaction, show you different layers and do all this, it kind of made me feel, I kind of like that. But at the same time, I do understand where
I think the problem is I just kept thinking, if I'm going to watch four characters essentially deconstruct each other to the point of madness, I'll watch Virginia Woolf. I'll go and watch Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, because that's a brilliant film which does quite similar things with sort of where the characters are. But I don't know, I was just sat there thinking, why? I'd love. I actually felt I'd love to see the play because
Yeah, that's how I feel.
I'd like to see if it works if the immediacy of a play brings it to life more than the film did, and I got the feeling there was a lot cut out of this. I mean, I don't know how long the play is. I know nothing about the play, but I kind of got the feeling there were some missing stages here.
We'll chalk it up to a split decision, I suppose.
Well,
I think so, and I think that'll be the reaction.
Yeah. Now I've listened to how you've kind of viewed it.
Don't listen to me.
Don't go over onto the dark side, Claire. Don't let him do that to you. Don't let him change your opinion. He'll do
my
that to you.
opinion's not changed, but I do understand where you're coming from. And another thing about this film is they did rehearse it like a play.
Yep.
Like they did it for like a couple, 6 weeks. They rehearsed it as a play and then literally filmed it, and so it just came across as a play on screen. And I guess, I think I would actually prefer to go and see the theatre version rather than the cinematic.
I agree, totally. Yeah, I would rather go and see the play. Haven't got the option to, so that's kind of, that's why I watched it. And I enjoyed that. Maybe I just liked it because I like feeling smug. You watch it, you think, I'm better than you guys. I'd have sorted this out a better way. Maybe that's what it is. It's like cathartic kind of thing coming across.
Picking up sort of the DVD case, it's everything I'd quite like about the film. It's an experiment in style and form. It's quite. I'm thinking, oh, this looks quite worthy and up itself. That's fine. That and I do. I enjoy films that are contentious and do. But this is the other thing. I didn't find that. I found the characters to be contentious rather than
what they were
talking
actions,
about, rather than the actual issues the film. Sort of the central issue of them meeting because one child has assaulted another.
Not really.
And these sort of news stories, when you hear about them, about kids getting arrested at school and mums getting arrested because they've walked in the classroom and slapped someone, I find them absolutely fascinating. But here, I just didn't. There was nothing contentious in it. They were just contentious people. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Our next home cinema release is the Tony Scott-alike Safe House, where Denzel Washington plays a defected CIA agent who turns up in Ryan Reynolds' titular safe house after being chased by mercenaries through the streets of Cape Town. Needless to say, not all is as it seems, and it's not long before the two men are on the run and not sure who to trust. Winter, what did you think?
The problem is that all is exactly as it seems.
Did you see what I did there?
Yeah, it's... I mean... you see the trailer for this and you think, oh, it's Tony Scott's new film starring Denzel Washington.
That's exactly what you think.
And they're going to be doing exactly what they do. Oh, it's not Tony Scott. Oh, right, that's interesting. Oh, no, hang on, it's not. It's not at all interesting because Denzel Washington is doing exactly what he's done in every film since, I think, Training Day.
Yeah, totally.
In fact, he either plays someone who's good or someone who's bad but charming. It's essentially the same. It's essentially the same super intelligent character. And it's quite interesting. When he got out the car at the start of the film, I thought, oh, he's dressed as Malcolm X.
He's got.
This will be quite. Yeah. No, it's not Malcolm X in any way. It's a film where close your eyes when the credits roll at the start because you'll see the cast list and you'll go, oh, right. It might as well have Brian Cox in it, is what I'm saying. The character who turns up and, I don't know, I better go and whoever says, I better go and check that out, you kind of think, right, it's going to be you. And it's just, it just goes on, and there's sort of some chase stuff, there's some stuff with some guns, and then those blokes turn up again later. I mean, it's got, I think, the sort of the centre of it, there's a good idea that scattered around the world, in innocuous apartment blocks and farmhouses are safe houses, which are really sort of secret interrogation
quite
and holding cells.
Places, yeah.
And there's someone who has to their job is just to wait in this house until it has to be used to make sure it's fine, to make sure it is, it's all ready for use. And then something happens, and then, after spending 8 months doing nothing, they suddenly have to do something. Because it's that old story. It's like the cop who's chained, who's relegated to the desk. Yeah, and he suddenly has to go out and shoot
just
someone.
Before retirement, he ends up getting
it's
a job.
It's that sort of thing. Except it doesn't do that. It just goes, oh well, that's an interesting setup. Let's have some action, and then it does that for the next 90 minutes. And like I say, you know where it's going, you know what the end's going to be, and it's just wearying.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I won't speak for long. You've basically covered it. It's perfectly average, but that's not a good thing. You know, it's boring. After the opening 10 minutes, I sat there and went, right, I can tell you right now what the last shot of this film is going to be. And that doesn't normally happen. I'm not normally particularly prophetic when it comes to even good guys and bad guys. But like you said, one guy turns up, you go, bad guy, you're going to end up there, you're going to do that, he's going to die, and off you go, and that's it. And it's like filmmaking by numbers. The fact that it's just disappointing, because, you know, Denzel Washington can act, Ryan Reynolds is quite likeable normally, you know, he can do some good stuff. And it was shot in Cape Town. It's quite an exciting, vibrant place, but you didn't even really get a sense of place. They could have been anywhere. No. And like you said, it all comes to a head and finishes exactly the way you expected it to. So, I mean, I say for me, it's worse than Rock of Ages. It's on a par. No, it's slightly better than Red Tails, but not really. So, you know, but not for any good reason, only because Red Tails is offensive. That's probably why. Safe House isn't even offensive. It doesn't even have the good grace to be controversial. It's just really boring. Now we move on to the section of the show where we talk about other things we've seen this week. So, Claire, what have you managed to catch up with?
I've been really looking forward to seeing Chronicle because I missed it at the cinema, and I was really excited to sit down and watch it. I am a massive fan of origin stories, and to me this was an origin story.
Yep.
And then I was frowning for the most of it, I think, because I was really disappointed. It was yet again another templated film, and they had a concept which was really interesting, but they kept repeating themselves over and over again, and they didn't let it move, I think, in the direction it should have. Or I could easily sit here saying I would have done this, I would have done that, but I really wanted it to move into a different direction, because every time something happened, someone had a nosebleed, and it was just like, okay, that's been done. Let's move on to something else. You have a fantastic concept, and I think this is what I love about cinema is ideas and people going along with ideas and seeing what they can do with it. But they just go to the safe places all the time, and they just say, okay, this worked well, let's do this again, and it's almost as if it's patronizing in some respect, because I really wanted it to really take the story and really drive it and really go with it. The ending was just left really kind of open. I don't know if there's any idea for a sequel or anything, but I thought that it's a very stereotypical way of how to create an evil villain, and a very stereotypical way of how to create someone who could possibly be a hero.
It's really interesting, because when we reviewed Chronicle on a previous podcast, it was when Peter was still here, and all three of us all had different opinions of it. I know, Winter, you loved it and you thought it was fantastic, and Peter really liked it and thought it was good. I was relatively middled. I enjoyed it, but didn't love it, and yet you even slightly more negative than I am, which is quite surprising. Was quite surprising about it.
So I really enjoyed the concept. I enjoyed the concept a lot more than the film, because I just thought it could have been so much better. And I love the idea of having the handheld cameras, like kind of Blair Witch meets Cloverfield. I was thinking about Cloverfield through the entirety of it, and I just thought, it's the same as I was talking about Men in Black 3. You have the possibility of anything, and yet they still stay on train tracks of we can't move from this, we can't move from that. It's like the only really good idea that they came up with through the whole film that I thought was a bit different was the fact that he went to do magic tricks and tried to get popularity by doing something. I'm not slamming the film. I'm not saying it was a terrible film or anything, but I'm just saying that they had potential, and I think they missed out.
Yeah, great. Winter, what else have you managed to catch up with this week?
I saw 3 films, but I've been so negative today. I'm not going to mention Coriolanus because it's just boring. Oh, yeah. But I saw The Descendants, which is George Clooney is about to be a widower and has some tough decisions to make about his family and has to get back in touch with his daughters and so on. And I also saw Goon, which is Sean Scott William, i.e. Stifler, who plays someone who is essentially roped into a professional ice hockey team to come on and punch people in the face and get sin-binned in a tactical way. So the first one just sounds terribly up itself, and it just looked like it was going to be, you know, if I say smart cinema,
Yeah,
but really kind of like, ooh, how clever, how it's almost like the Coens, but not quite type of cinema. The second one, surely this is going to be an Adam Sandler movie. It's going to be terrible. But both of them, I was really surprised by. They both contain brilliant performances. I mean, really fantastic performances. And they're both really smart and also quite touching stories about guys who are sort of put into a world that they then have to cope with.
Even the Goon.
Wow. It's a very surprising film. It's very violent, and it does, you know, it does have a bit of knockabout humour to it. But it's a really touching film, and both of them really interesting character studies, especially Goon, which is about a character that you don't see so much, the character who can't do more. And yet it still works. You still get a character arc with it. You still get a very interesting performance. I just wish, you know, Sean Scott Williams would stop playing stiff.
Sean William Scott.
Sean William, whatever he's called. Yeah, but both really surprising, really good films. I'd highly recommend them.
That wraps it all up for this week. Thanks for listening, and make sure you tune in next time when we won't be reviewing either Top Cat or Ice Age 4, but we will take a look at The Amazing Spider-Man and the new DVD releases. As always, you can find us on Facebook through the Guernsey Film Info page and on YouTube at our 24 lives per second channel. See you next time.